of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I know, but it was fun. There's a council in Washington, D.C., or in the state, and they say you'll need to say it once, and then all the meetings go on. I made a big deal about it on the national. And they did. We always do an invitation to our town meeting, too. Okay. Roll call.
Bill Kanda.
Here.
Kevin Day.
Here.
Tom Flower.
Present.
Dr. Brown.
Here.
Adrian Washington.
Here.
Tina Jones. Here.
Let the record show our attorney's not.
Our attorney's not.
That's correct. And, audience introductions, we've got Buck Wenzel here in the room, and that's all we have in the room. And nobody else is on record here. Oh, I'm sorry. You announced you last meeting, so it counts still.
Kayla, what's your last name?
Kayla.
Day. Oh, okay.
What am I doing? I mean, you look so familiar sitting there with part of the crew.
That's pretty weak.
Okay, any items, add or subtract? Kevin?
None here.
No changes. And approval of the minutes, now, already Tina's let us down, that's once. Doesn't have the minutes from the 12th of December or whatever it was.
Correct.
I move to approve January 25 minutes as submitted.
I would second that
Okay,
motion.
moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 25th. Discussion. I thought they were perfect. I thought they looked wonderful myself. Okay. We probably could have approved them at the end of the last meeting technically, but.
Yeah.
All right, there's an inside joke there, but, Tina's on probation. Oh, yeah. To let you know. All right. We're all nervous because we've been averaging about 5 months. Between that and. There's just 5 of them in the last. All right, it's been moved and seconded. January 25th, and I had heard no discussion on it. Call for the vote. Ken?
Aye.
Aye. And aye. Approved. Okay, reports, Board of Health members, you have anything to bring up, Ken?
I think the only thing since our last Board of Health is when, me and Dr. Brown came down here and, looked the building over, and, we're here today now, so that, looked good.
Yeah, and it's great to actually see people. And, when you speak, Dr. Brown, pull your mask off for us. We're having a hard time hearing in this room.
Pardon me?
Yeah. And that's your option, of course. All right, so from that point, you got everything? On the, where are we at? Sorry, on the agenda or not? No, it's for, comments or anything. Oh, for the minutes,
BOH member.
Report.
Report.
Reports. I've got a question, but I probably will just wait until Dr. Brown's report, if I may, and then, if he doesn't answer it, then I'll ask him. I think he can answer, because he's got an awful lot to say.
Oh, dear.
All right, I don't either, but I wanted to say thanks for setting this up, and thanks for looking at, the other rooms that you did there. We will try to have as many open meetings as we can. We may schedule these Board of Health meetings, rather than following this meeting down here, because it may be up at West Cliff, to save Buck from driving down here. That's the only reason we were doing it. But thanks a lot, and Kevin, thanks for setting up the room. And it's nice to have Kevin, on board within a walking distance from his house. It's tough, but he came through, and you don't have to drive through the snow.
No.
All right, Dr. Brown, we'll, listen to your report, and then, see what other issues we may have.
Okay.
Besides COVID, and then, I don't think Jackie will call us yet.
I think you have almost in print, almost everything that I spent time drawing up for a report for you. But just from this morning, to give you that report, we are at a 4.5% average incidence for the week, which is below the 5, and that's where we need to be to maintain where we are. We still have recorded in Cedars in the state records between 1 to 2 hospitalized people. Now, we have 3 showing since about the 11th or so of January, but right now we have at least 1 in the hospital that I'm aware of, and I just found out today how to break through that menagerie and track our hospitalizations from Custer County. They do not appear to be more accurate than the other way I was receiving information. However, at least it is in written form. We've had 163 for the year, and it's almost to the date. What was it, the 4th of March, I think, that we started all this in COVID? That's when we gained national or federal grants and all those things. Everything started at that time. So we've had 163 positives total in that whole period of time. Fewer influenzas by far, but we'll discuss that later. We've had 1 death that's actually certified, so to speak, by the coroner since that time also in the year, and we've had 2,302 tests as of last night done, COVID testing. We've had 1 positive in the last 7 days, but none in the past 4. So kind of we're running between 1 and 2.8 or something like that per week during our last 31 days. Any questions about any of those numbers?
The 1,302 tests.
That's 2,302 tests.
2,000.
Right.
So that's about half the population.
Yeah, but some of these people have tested more than once.
Okay. That's what
And when you get into the hospitalizations, usually before they leave, if they've been in an ICU, intensive care unit, they will usually test them again just to make sure that their lung capacity, so on, is where they want it before they're released.
Okay, so you're going to get into the vaccinations here.
Yes, sir.
The only question I would have then, not the numbers or anything, do you think that the vaccinations are going to cause people to stop testing?
I think that there will be a remarkable decrease. Yeah, I
We
do.
may never get the whole.
Correct, because we don't know how many of our residents were tested in Pueblo, in Canyon City, and Saleta. We have had lots of trouble just getting the people who were in their hospitals, reported as from Custer County. So, not only the diagnoses, but the hospitalizations, and there have been potentials for deaths elsewhere. But once again, we don't know.
The last question on the numbers is several weeks ago, you mentioned a lot of tests from people coming from Denver and other places because they get it done quicker here. Did that drop off, or have you had?
We haven't had enough vaccines to give a really good response for that. We watch kind of carefully, we discourage, but we cannot deny.
Right.
So we've had this is off the top of my head now, but we've probably had no more than 12 total out of the many vaccines.
And the backlog of appointments, you don't know where they're from.
I'm going to give you some of those things, but we really don't have eyes on because they don't give us not only their ages accurately when we're going 70 plus, but they don't give us their addresses.
It's just odd to me that we would shortchange a critical person up here because somebody can crash the line.
You're not alone in that
And I'm sure that.
observation.
Okay.
That's right. And Fremont County, I know in Pueblo, it's the same thing. I mean, they have very rich people paying $30,000 for a vaccination to get by the links. People who fly out from New York and various states in the East Coast. can't get them in a timely manner back there. So, for the total doses of vaccines that we have given, now this is up through the 12th, up through last Friday. It's not including what we're planning to give in 2 days. 1,229, now that includes first and second doses. So individuals, it doesn't say we've had 1,229 people vaccinated, we've given 1,229 vaccinations, shots. Okay, so the first doses you can read for yourself here, 829, second dose is 400. And we have scheduled, and I've broken things down, the 18th of February is misleading. That's as of tomorrow. We have that many doses in hand, but we will not be holding a clinic until Friday, which is the 19th.
You have
Yes,
February
sir.
18th.
I know that.
But
That's
it's
why I said it. It's misleading,
Okay.
but it does not state that that is the date of the clinic.
Okay.
It's just on that date, we will have still that many doses. Yes, Tom?
Well, I guess you probably answered the question I had here, was when I read this, I thought 18th of February, you were gonna be second
Right.
vaccinating 209.
Yeah, and
That's not the
we
case.
have changed that on the webpage.
And then same with the teachers, then.
Yes.
That's not happening
No,
tomorrow?
that's happening on Friday. So the 19th is our actually clinic. I just gave this because I wanted to make sure we didn't give any more yesterday or today, so that when I gave you the report, but that is misleading, you're correct, and it has been changed on the webpage, because we had one call already this morning, very early.
And I know you haven't gotten there yet, but teachers /65 to 69, is that the age group?
Yes,
And you're thinking you'll do about 50 of those?
yeah, I'll break that down to you. Let me get through the second doses here. We will have given 209. This is what we predict. This is what we're planning on for Friday, okay? By the end of Friday business day, close of business, we should have given 209 that day.
So if we change that 18th of February to the 19th,
If you're talking about the day that it's given, yes. Exactly
On
so.
the website, on that.
Yes, it has been changed on the website, so people are not misled.
and you
We-
have the doses on hand for those?
Yes, we do. And we have not scheduled patients that we do not have doses for. And there have been people who have, or counties that have, and have gotten in trouble. So now the state has come out and said, don't do it.
They still making us slow down and let the state catch up.
That is effectively how it's working, yes. So we have about if you want to write this down, I'm going to give it to you. We have about 43 educators for first doses scheduled on Friday.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Because
Go ahead.
I'm missing something. So I read the vaccines were scheduled, you requested 300, but you don't have any vaccine for this week.
We have vaccine for Friday, but we have no vaccines that we have received this week for next week. We always get them beforehand so we can actually schedule. We know what we have to play with.
So you have vaccines on hand now
Yes.
to deal with
Yes.
the stuff that you're indicating here?
Yes.
209,
Exactly.
and 135?
Yes. However, for the 26th, that's Lang Hall is available for the first half. We have no vaccine received for then, and that's what I put, vaccine only requested as of this time. But the rest of the doses that I said that we have here, we actually have vaccine for those
So
doses.
it's 209 to 50.
Yes, sir.
135.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask why Lang Hall's only available for a half a day? I thought we rented that months ago.
We did, there's another meeting being held, but we usually don't have, we rent it for Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. Okay?
26th must be
The 26th is a Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah,
Like conflict?
Yeah.
Okay. But
Yeah,
we didn't, that wasn't our regular schedule.
No.
That's true, exactly right, exactly right.
That's what I was getting at, thank
Yeah,
you.
okay. So we have 43 vaccines for educators. Now, this is, I think they're like 37, if I'm not mistaken, teachers and school people who want to have the vaccines. there in
We got 5
West Valley, but then we have others who missed their shots or whatever, and we have a few educators who are educators elsewhere. So we're putting them all together. So it's about 50. That's why I said approximately, because I don't have guarantees. It is approximate. It'll be at least that number if everybody shows up. And then the second doses will be, because we have no vaccine for first doses on the 23rd of February. That's a lot of numbers, but that's kind of the way. I wanted you to have at least something in writing so you knew to be able to answer questions for people when they pose them to you. Do you have questions on any of those numbers other than what you've asked?
You get a lot of calls for shots still?
Yeah, quite a few. We have more every day. You know, they're coming in, and when the announcements go out that are produced publicly by the governor or whoever, then all of a sudden we get this deluge. We have our 65 through 69. I mean, we have.
Once they open another gate, you get a tranche.
Yes, sir. We have those ready and waiting for us, and I have some of that information here a little bit later on for you. Anyway, so no vaccine doses wasted.
Question, if I may, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
I indicated to you once before in an email, I just don't like dealing in the rumor mill, huh?
Right.
Rumor mill had it that there were doses refrozen by accident. Any
Yeah.
truth to that?
They were not frozen. They were never refrozen.
Okay.
Okay? We have and this is the transportation thing. We have a little cooler, it looks like a Coleman cooler, about this big, that we can set the temperature to, and that it will actually keep our vaccines, okay? However, it's not something we'd want to leave them in. So as soon as we got them back to the office, the temperature gauge that monitors how cold they are had been turned off. Stuck them into the freezer, got them cooled. I mean, we're talking about 30 minutes or so from the time they shut it off, but just to make sure, cool them down, move them back into the refrigerator. So if that's where you're coming from, Tom.
I have no idea.
Okay, anyway, that's your answer.
There was a rumor that they were lost.
Yeah, no, they were not lost. We've not lost any.
Lost till we used it.
Right, no, we've not lost any COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
Period. And we've used, most of the time, we have the 25 gauge, which is a very small gauge needle. When Beth or Sherry or any of our others, Amy or whoever, puts it in the arm, you don't even feel the thing. It's amazing. But if you get a larger diameter needle, like a 23 or 21 or whatever gauge, you start to feel it, plus you can't draw as accurately
With a big gauge.
with a big gauge. And so we don't get our 11th dose out of the 10 dose vials, which we've been able to do pretty consistently. Only when we have the larger gauge needle or a longer, instead of the 1 inch 25 gauge, then we can't do it as accurately. And what they're sending out, apparently they're short of needles. Well, all of a sudden you have millions of needles being asked for all across the United States. Not surprising, gee, you think? And guess where they're made? China. Just leave that. Anyway, but I wanted to bring to your awareness the amount of community support. It has been highly impressive. And except for just a couple of people, these people are not paid. They have just come out and done a marvelous job. I mean, their attitude is up. Support for food service, I'll just read this off just for the record. Monitoring of individuals after we give the injections, before we give the injections, filling out all of the forms that have to be done for the CIS, for the information. The sanitization of the chairs, our regular registration where they come in, first begin the sign-in process at the desk, and these have been organized and brought into service by Rhonda Martin. It's just highly impressive. We've had support, of course, from our public health employees, from Sherry and Beth, plus our aides that we hired here this last fall to be able to help run and keep everything very tightly under control, and number-wise and organizationally. But we've had our two hired RNs, immunization RNs. I remember Beth Green was going to be retiring on the 30th of December. Thank God she stayed around. It's helped tremendously, but she won't be there forever. We've had the chief schedule and two schedulers. We've had SIS data entry from one of the women that I hired there in the public health, and we've had, of course, Mr. Washington, who's been managing our appointment staff. We've also had testing support outside of our area, but we've also had what is now the Heart of the Rockies Medical Clinic there in Westcliff, and the hospital support that we were assigned from Parkview, St. Thomas More, and the Heart of the Rockies in Slay. Any questions about any of that information?
When you say support has been provided, you mean they're available to us if we need them?
They actually came in and performed all the duties that I read off here. So yes.
The hospitals did, St. Thomas?
No, they haven't, well, they provide the support. They don't come in and do it for free. They charge good money for it. But those, since we don't have any hospitals, those are the ones that were assigned to us for COVID management by the state.
And you need to raise this, yes.
Oh, yeah. They take our people.
So when you say the hospitalization support has been provided by, somebody's gonna say, what did they do for you? Well, they haven't done anything, right? They're just available if we need to send.
Well, they've taken our COVID patients that have been put on the ICU.
Right.
So basically to furnish a bed for them, I guess.
A bed and respiratory therapy, on and on and on,
Which
yes.
is our agreement.
Yes.
We have written agreement
Exactly.
with the hospital.
Exactly. Yes, sir. Okay, so our current dial status in the county obviously is blue, thank God. And I just gave you, in the past 31 days, we've had 10 positives show up in testing. Cumulative incidence the last 7 days, 4.5, in the last 2 weeks, 4.6. Hospitalization 1 to 2, so we're rated as yellow at this time. So the years total I gave you already, 123. Now, are there questions about the levels? We've had one death, we've had 2,299 tests done, 94.7%, I believe, of these were the PCRs, the swab in the nose, so the accurate testing. There are tests that have been done by one particular company that has now been, they have now been disqualified from taking state money.
Still testing though.
They are still testing, but not very many people using their services now. They've been kind of exposed.
Mr. Chairman, may I, I'm sorry to keep going, but, to reiterate, 2,299 tests have been given in our county.
To the best of our knowledge, these are our county that we know of,
That's what I'm
yes.
getting at.
Yes,
We,
our
the county,
residents, yes.
we're not saying who got them, we're not saying people got them otherwhere, we're saying
That's right.
this was the number of tests performed.
Performed here, yes, sir.
And I think we need to probably make that clear in your numbers when you say
Okay.
that. These were Custer County tests. That doesn't mean 2,299 people have been tested.
Right.
That's what I'm afraid people are gonna look at that and go, oh, well, hell.
Half the county's
That's half the
done.
county. We can't say that, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
I will
that's what-
add that in and just make it,
Bill-
should make it really clear.
Yeah, 'cause I just,
Yeah, I tried to say that when we first started, but that is not clear here.
right,
So I will,
okay, thank you. I know I'm reiterating what Bill said about that, but.
And then make sure it includes first and second.
yes. Well, these are tests.
These are
Or
tests.
tests.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they could have had 14 tests in one person.
Exactly.
No one's had that, but I'm just saying.
It'd be interesting someday to try to figure out how many people in our county did get tested,
Yeah, it would be.
and how many times they
Or
got
they'll
tested.
admit,
Yeah.
or not.
And same,
Any questions on the color dial restriction capacities and so on? I think everybody's gone over that innumerable times, but I just put it in there in case.
Well, initially, 2.1, or 1.1, preschool through 12th grade was in-person or hybrid, right? They've dropped the hybrid.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thankfully for all the kids involved.
Before you go on.
Yes, sir.
From a mayor's point of view, any concerns from the citizens of the town that are vaccination questions?
Always concerned.
I know there is, but they have issues.
Doc, are you using the new status dial or the old
The
status?
newer.
And what does the state have us listed in now?
Blue.
Okay,
Okay, so that's
and what does the county have us listed in?
blue.
Blue. He said yellow a minute ago.
No, so we
No.
went from yellow.
No, from yellow to
To blue.
Yeah,
Right.
orange to yellow.
Yeah, we went orange to
You may have
yellow to
heard
blue.
yellow.
Okay?
We voted to go blue our last BOH meeting.
Yes.
It was a month ago.
Yes. So basically, we are essentially open, okay? But we have so few people in our county that if we have 5 people get sick, everything just explodes as far as numbers against us. Okay? So then all sorts of breaks loose. Okay? So I still want people to be careful. If they're gonna be sitting in the truck for 2 hours driving up to Denver, first of all, they'll be driving too fast to get there in 2 hours, but, I want them to have a mask or have all the windows open, no windshield. In other words, I just want them to have lots of airflow through so nobody does anything any more than they would with any other virus. We just have to be careful. Because right now, we're winning. That's where I want us to stay.
I totally understand your need to be cautious,
And that's it.
but sooner or later, we all need to realize that we should probably be at green instead of blue.
Yes. Yes.
That's-
And it is almost, you have to establish, like, their criterion for getting to green is amazing. Like, all of a sudden, you hit a brick wall. You've been working and showing improvement for all these weeks and showing, far less than what we usually have for the flu, and they still say, oh, no, that's not good enough. You gotta establish this for this period of, on and on.
So that's the bottom line. There is an option, an opportunity to ask for a variance. That's what we're building the case to go do that. And what he means by we are open, we basically are, with the ability to use the space the way we are, with him making sure that you're using the right numbers with fire codes and, you would get to that number, doing it safely.
I understand.
So, but we wanna be able to make it so that you're completely open, you're awesome, stay out of town, go in there if you want to, wear a mask, if you want to get some feedback, they're up to the citizens, not the feedback.
Just my opinion, and I'm all over both towns and the county, but in our businesses, having dialogue. Last couple of weeks, there's still half the people, most all of the servers in the restaurants are wearing masks. And I was at the bowling alley today, and I'd say half the patrons down there had masks on, so I think we're being responsible.
I think so
that's
too.
the point, Buck.
Great.
And that's the case we're trying to build with the state. At some point, the state's gotta just back off, we're where we are, and we can apply for that variance, and then we can either accept the results or thumb our nose in. That's where we're headed, it's not to get that way. These counties are already taking the bull by the horns and drawing one. So that's, we've got the statistics to back it up now.
And while we're here, can we touch, because I think this is a good time to do it, touch on this 5-star. Do you remember that, when we brought that up? The amount of paperwork and deliverables on that program, I mean, you already have to be, yeah, that's it. You have to be almost at a green status in the first place before they'll let you go to the green. I mean, it is absurd, and so virtually no counties are participating in it.
My daughter and her business partner applied for that 5-star rating
Right.
and got it.
Congratulations.
County, but, very difficult, it took them a long time, a lot of heartburn,
And they can drop you in 2 weeks. I mean,
and in the big scheme of things, they both said it really wasn't worth it. But they did get it granted, so, I wanted to comment about level green, if I may, Chairman. And I think Dr. Brown is exactly right. Level green isn't level, it's not just another level, it's protect our neighbor status, and I'm sure we've all read the matrix that have to be met with that. I'd love for level green to be just like we did with level blue, well, we know that ain't happening, we can't just call L and say, hey, we want you to move us. The packet to get that, protect our neighbors, to me is just ridiculous, but, so we may be stuck at blue for a while. I know there's like 4 people locally in the county that have to sign off on that application for protect our neighbors, so, I don't know. I also wanted to mention Dr. Brown's benefit, he may or may not know this, plays into what we're talking about. In the BOCC's meeting this morning, we voted to change the mask language now from required to recommended in all county-owned offices. We're all gonna take our shots for that, but just so you know, that's.
thank you.
It has nothing to do with anything except county offices. Restaurants, nothing, just county-owned offices, was how you phrased it, right, Kevin?
Yes, that's correct.
County-owned.
County-owned
County-owned
buildings.
buildings,
County-owned
actually, wasn't offices, it was buildings.
I went to every restaurant that was open, and all the people are very willing in food services to keep that mask on to help protect. I mean, they were very polite, they're very positive. They said, you know, there may come a time when you don't have to do this, but I would recommend that you do it because you're not gonna have as many people walking out with viruses, bacterial infections, fungus, whatever, if you're serving food. I mean, that to me just makes sense. But when you're coming in to eat the food, I mean, you're still breathing, and you're breathing a lot, obviously, so it's not the...
take a time out,
That's right, exactly.
and people are being careful.
They are, very nicely careful.
Well, my
I'm impressed.
suspicion is that we're gonna continue to hear and be asked this very pointed question. If you three, meaning us, decided to change that language from required to, recommended, then why do we still have to have a sign on our door that says required? In other words, we're thumbing our nose at the governor, they're not.
And that's the whole point, the reason I brought up, the fact is, we may thumb our nose at it eventually, if they're not, if the light being tunnel keeps getting pushed further back, and we're continuing to be better. And so we may decide, Tom brought up that there's that new money, and I think you're aware of it, possibility that it's double what we got for CARES before, with the new money that they're thinking about sending to the state. Another $900,000 potentially for the county. And so we would have to be, weighing risk versus the benefit of whether we get that money or not. If it comes to that at some point. Because in my view, it's better that we get, the businesses going full bore and keep that, the economic engine going, as opposed to a one shot in the arm for, what was it, $260 per person,
Countywide,
countywide.
$991,600.
So, and
Not
it's,
counting the 2 towns.
and I think that's important, so that people know that, because, we wanna do what the county wants, I want to do, is what the people wanna do in the county. And so if they're, when they understand that what they've been doing has been great, and we're making time, we're holding our own, we can thumb our nose at that $900K, it may be worth more to do that than it would be to hunker down and lose another business.
kind of informal, isn't it?
Okay, well, that's good. So,
Yeah, we had like a few guys
sure, knows anybody, we've been good with people, right?
Yep.
We probably had one of the lowest rates. I'm gonna ask Doc in a few minutes, or maybe sidebar with him, and ask him, how many cases of flu have we had up here, and how many cases of cold
Okay.
have we had up
He's
here?
actually gonna get into that.
Okay, so, irrespective of that, I think I was totally disgusted, disappointed, and everything else with the last, was Senate Bill B-001, that said, okay, we're gonna open up 57 million for small businesses, and Fremont, as well as Custer, weren't afforded any of that because we were in condition red for the entire month of December. Total discrimination, again, just like our CARES Act funding. I mean, the rules changed for us monthly for the CARES Act.
Or wasn't communicated.
Well, of course. Everybody else got two wins of that. Rules for engagement
Of course,
were
if we
really changed.
no,
Anyway,
stayed red, I don't know.
my position is, I'm still going back to Governor Noel, look at the country for the, look at Sweden. They did nothing to cease businesses. They encouraged everybody to be responsible, and it worked.
And that's right, and that's what we're trying to say here, from our point.
A year later,
Well, right, but now, you better never, now than never, right? Hindsight.
the window's already been broken, and the damage has been done to all of our businesses, so
We don't want to continue.
we need to recover.
Yeah, we really do. If I may interject here, I spoke with my son and daughter I've mentioned this several times before, have a restaurant in Fort Collins. They are now, this month, have done more than they ever did pre-COVID. Now that things have started to open up again, and they're much more efficient, thank you very much, and it is working. So I think our businesses here can do exactly the same thing and do very well. So, just a comment from personal experience.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, but there are no more questions here about the dial, whatever. Okay, so, just to let you know, we have completed the 1A, the high-risk healthcare workers, direct contact workers, long-term care workers. We have virtually completed the 1B.1. We have a few 70-plus-year-olds who we've not been able to get in contact with again. They originally phoned in or dialed in or something, but we haven't been able, we've tried repeatedly to get in contact with them. But essentially, all of those and the sheriff's staff and so on are taken care of. We are in the process right now, 1B2, it's 65-69 age group, plus the licensed child care facility educators. So this Friday, we should pretty well have blown those out. We won't be all the way through, but we will be a long ways through. Then the next group, of course, is the 16 to 64 and the frontline workers, but these are the ones with the high-risk conditions, and a lot of them are more at risk than the people we've already taken care of. But anyway, so those will be our next stage. I wasn't able to get a hold of Christy Coleman this morning, and I wasn't able to get onto the call yesterday for some strange reason, but the push seems to be that we should have these big, massive vaccination days instead of doing things more carefully as we have, but they are supplying vaccines for 1,000 people at a shot, so that's a terrible pun, but just these large groups, and yet they're not giving us 100 or 200 doses. So there's a problem there. So I am going to start pushing on Christy and some of the others to just say yes or no. Is this really what you're doing, or you're cutting our throats so that you can have these for? They just want big exposures.
It's not OEM, is it?
No.
Is it the state, pushing that down to
Well, yeah, it is the OEC, yeah, pushing, because they're under control. That's what the governor has given.
Anything about the numbers at all, what the state is telling us?
They would prefer that we do the larger pods. And the larger pods seem to be getting preference, because you can vaccinate more people in a shorter amount of time versus a longer amount of time.
So we don't
Get
get
all of the surrounding, if you look at all the surrounding counties, they are doing vaccination pods. In other words, large
grocery
vaccination
stores somewhere.
clinics. Not, grocery stores are not included in the pods. So they're separate entities. Most of the grocery stores, and Dr. Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, they receive their vaccine directly from a federal distribution system, whereas the counties receive their vaccination from a state distribution center. And so, on the conference call yesterday, the counties that are doing vaccination pods appear to be able to get vaccine, whereas a county like Custer that is doing individual vaccinations, we don't seem to get it. I think we've got, 100 doses in the last 2 weeks.
We got 200 last week.
Most file a lawsuit against CDPHE based on that, fact.
Don't tempt me.
You know,
It's not right.
Proving it would be a little difficult, but.
Well, we can't get good stats on the distribution system. In other words, you would like to see a formula for how counties get vaccine. And we don't. I heard one of you mention, it appears that we're being punished for our efficiency. See, at one time, we were at 80% probably in our 70+, and the rest of the state was at 20%. So we stopped getting vaccine, and the rest of the state then kind of caught up. And so basically our program was put on hold, but we're a small county, so we can do more vaccine.
Do you know if that's all those small counties, or is it just hit or miss? Is there a county that's squawking and can get them, you know?
Well, I would say, there's a lot of squawking going on, but there's not a lot of giving. And
All the
so-
counties are complaining about the same thing, all the little guys particularly.
Yeah, so and it seems to be that the smaller counties, seem to get the, not the short end of the stick, but yes, the short end of the stick, because,
Real short stick.
the reality is, our program was set up to get the whole county vaccinated in probably 4 weeks. If we had the vaccine, we could have been done.
It seems like we're being penalized for being blue.
I think we
Because
could
if
have
they're good enough to get by and we don't need
Small.
vaccine, so that's right, my point is, if we're not really having a lot of problems, why give you the vaccination, we'll let everybody else have it first.
They won't let us get ahead of other counties. They want us all moving at the same rate. So when we accomplish our goal, all of a sudden the wall is there.
So, from a political perspective, I think the position needs to be, I understand having everyone progress together. I see the logic in that. But
Sure.
the reality is,
I don't even see the logic in that.
it costs the small counties a lot of money because of our delay. I mean, we could have proceeded and been done in a month and a half versus,
Yeah, we're
5,
paying
6
more
months.
money to keep people around.
Yeah, we could have put out the same amount of money to do it in a month that we're gonna do it in 6.
what we, it's just very cost
Inefficient.
inefficient for the small
So you don't think
counties.
it's worth for us to do anything to call up, the governor, I don't care who we call.
Well,
What would,
are you asking us a
yeah,
question?
what do you're around, you hear people you're dealing with, other counties, what works for them, if anything?
Well, I think one approach could be that if you wrote a letter to the governor, and I bet you could get other smaller counties to, come along with you. Let the small counties get done with this vaccination program soon.
Because it doesn't take a lot of shots to do that.
It doesn't take-
Digging into the big pot for the big cities.
That is correct.
they will answer, because we want to keep the reins in on everybody and move the state forward as one entity, which is bullcrap, but that's what they'll say, I'm sure.
Exactly what they say.
And that we don't want to give you extra vaccines to do that.
And that might be their
Forward
response,
contention
but
that
it makes no,
But see, you get it in writing, then you got something to deal with if you just decide to come back later. It might be worth it.
my concern is that in the spring, summer, when all of the population shifts and people move to rural counties, it would be nice to have the rural counties done versus moving us.
Okay. All right, got it. Don't need to, are you done with the, you got other issues now?
Yeah, I just wanted to go through the rest of
Yeah,
what
go ahead.
we went through here. So, the present challenges, which is what we're discussing, to all counties, everybody is insufficiency of vaccine, but when you do it in these massive groups, they seem to be supporting that more than they are doing it carefully and as we have been doing it. The small counties don't have the population bases scheduled for thousands of mass immunizations like the large counties do, so this is exactly what we're talking about here. The non-COVID immunizations that we have done, however, I don't want you to think just COVID. I want you to think complete of what we have been doing in the public health. We haven't been talking about it much, but since August, 734 vaccinations. Influenza vaccinations completed this year, just since August, 643. Shingles, herpes zoster, vaccinations 59, TB 11, pneumonia 21. So we have done more of all of these than we usually do, in addition to the fact that we've also done the COVID vaccinations.
Were some of those outside of the public health office?
No, we're the only ones to perform vaccinations.
So you don't go, that wouldn't go to somebody's house and give them?
No, I think there was, you always look for the exception, because I think there was one elderly woman who literally could not leave her house that Beth has been working with for, I don't know how many years, but she went to that house. But in general, no. She would go to Valley,
Yeah.
okay? She, had been going out to, was it, Hillside? And been doing that, but they have shut down. She went there the last time this fall, because they've now shut down the post office there, so things are pretty well
But
closed.
this has nothing to do with Hardwood Rockies?
No, this has nothing to do. They don't do any vaccinations. We do all, okay?
Good number.
The age group, yeah, I think they're to be commended. They've worked hard. We set up things, as we talked about last time, change things from having everybody inside to having them go through our drive-through, so nobody has to be exposed to anything. If they're outside, do the immunization, don't even get out of their car, and they're gone. And we can watch them then for the next 15 minutes, and we're good to go. The only two that are documented, people who said we don't want, or we had some trouble with the vaccination, first dose, now we're talking back to COVID, here's some switching horses again, were people who have had problems in the past every time they went to the doctor's office or every time they had a vaccination of any kind, but not something that came as a result of. No. Things can turn around, it just takes one or two. So, and we have one that I'm suspicious of, but we've got a long ways before we can nail anything on that one. So this autumn, winter time, for the greater than 65-year-old vaccinations, we've exceeded, for that age group, for flu, for all the other vaccinations, we've exceeded, like it's been more than 100% of what we are required as a public health agency to do to get our grants, to get our support from the state. For the entire school district, Casey Carpenter is being assisted by Beth to complete her reports, to give advice and so on, because she's been working now through the last several school nurses. The kindergarten group is temporarily behind. They're about, and I'm going to give you an average, about 65%. those are easy to catch up with during this next year when we're not giving thousands of COVID. We have a few years to go. Anyway, this age group has been compromised in so many ways by the isolation, by not allowing them to have their social interaction, which has been, to my mind, almost criminal. But we signed up and we're paying for more of the reach out and read books. So we literally give out books to families when they're homeschooling or when their kids are there with them and have not been able to go to school. So the reach out and read program. The variant has been much, much slower in its spread than what the fears were published to be. So hopefully, at least to some extent, our modification of behaviors has affected better control of this variant that's supposedly a whole lot more virulent. The last thing, we, as you know, because you guys all okayed it, we hired a replacement nurse for Beth Green. She has been going through it, but Beth has stayed on to help with the COVID, plus a part-time nurse, and I'm hoping that eventually we'll be able to work her into a second part-time position that is less part-time than it is now. It's just 1 day a week now. But she is excellent. Both of these women who have been brought in are just excellent nurses. They're loved by people, and they do an excellent job. Okay, so that's in the program and grant writing and management and so on, director for all of these things, Rhonda Martin, administrative assistant. Those are the technicians and the staff that support Rhonda and support our nurses that we have added in, and it has been successful. Questions, gentlemen? Tom, did I answer any of what you were asking?
Yes. Where are we gonna get the money to pay for these new people?
What has been done to pay for them right now is not cost, well, we initially take it out, but we put it right back into the state. So all of these people are being paid for, yes, by the grants that we have submitted for and received. And so we have been well supported. We're not in the red at all. We're in, well, we are a red, but we're not in the red. So it's working well.
Okay, so let's catch up here then.
Yes, sir.
Vaccination program-wise, this is a new business piece. We just got a report on that. The only action I see out of that is perhaps a call to several people, maybe a letter to send our future, if we see that necessary. And then the discussion on the dial, we had that variance. I think maybe the variance, maybe, we'll see, depending on that call too. That would be another thing to argue with them, I think, in the future, to let them know we're not sitting here just that doesn't happen. We're launching it to bid to go forward and get ourselves, as I pointed out, shed the shackles there. So we might want to do some more homework. It doesn't hurt for you to let people know. I mean, don't, when you're talking to them at that level, Cliff, eye to eye, let them know that, that's in the cards. I did ask that a long time ago. I talked to Elle a month or two ago, whenever it was. And that's before they came up with their new method. And their new method is nice to have it be blue, but it's not the end of it. They just need to know that.
I have tried in the past, even when we were orange, to give more variance, to our people. And we did it with yellow, and we're gonna do it, as far as I'm concerned, with blue.
We've got a good reputation now with them, I think. That's what the impression I got when I was trying. Okay, so is there any other points or questions from anybody else? Go ahead.
I just would like to have you address how our call takers are doing, those are temps also, and that we have funding available to, pay them back. There's grants now available to the state. So you want to talk about that, or shall I?
Real briefly, yes, they're learning more and more. The further we get, the more, like I got a really nice report back from Lee, who is the head of the information gathering and scheduling. So they're doing better and better work.
And
here, oh, yeah,
Lee,
oh, yes,
you're talking Lee, okay.
yes, yeah, Lee here in Custer County, and our two women who are working over there. So the more they work, the more they see problems, the more we've been able to kind of, work through problems, and it's been a process. It was not a one-time shot by any stretch of the imagination, but it's been very nice to let our other people work with other vaccinations and other problems in the public health. And with Adrian's two ladies and the gentleman, they have been a tremendous asset.
And I would hope that work, is the complaints that you receive, dropping off, or people happier?
I haven't gotten any lately.
The only thing I hear is on vaccination programs off. We all know why that is. That's been the big complaint.
So our main push is documenting their time, making sure that we have good record keeping of what they're doing on 214, so they use the 214 form, which is a daily report of what you do. We document their time, so that when the opportunity comes to get reimbursed for those positions, we should be fully reimbursed for those temporary positions.
We talked about the three that,
Yes, I got it.
make sure.
Kevin?
I got a couple, I think, just kind of touching on Tom's question on the finances for those, the two vaccination nurses, and you said you have grants for them. I thought maybe your question might have involved moving ahead as well, because when COVID's over, those grants run out. So you might want to address that.
Well, particular grants run out, but they have now extended through 2022, okay? So we have another 2 years right now, just before we even hardly get off the baseline. So, I don't expect things just to stop. I think that would be disaster in the state, and they'd have screams to high heaven. But I expect that we will continue being able to do the major portion as we already had been. It had been a 60-40 split before this COVID ever started, that was being paid for not by the county.
I think part of that conversation for Kevin's sake too, because he wasn't seated yet when we had these initial conversations. When COVID goes away, these positions go away.
Okay.
They were brought on.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
Now, that brought up the point of both of these, which I thought of when first brought it up, working so well, and you did a lot of work on the normal vaccination. The public health agency is doing more than them in the population county. So I think part of the question would be, there may be an opportunity for other grants, or a growth in the current grant, because we need to make one of those positions permanently.
Yes, and I plan
Taking
to,
ahead.
with grants.
That's what I thought was part of what.
And that's exactly what I was saying, yes.
So, they go away, sure enough, but maybe we don't want them to go away, and then, but we can't do it unless we get the grant.
That's right, we have to keep, that's why we are involved in so many different grants.
Okay.
My other question comes, I think you were referring to your post-shot, 15-minute window where you're observing, and you referred to a single case, I think that had a reaction. I'm
Yes.
assuming that it was unclear to me, so I wanted
Yeah,
to.
it was unclear to us too. Like, I went out and talked to this particular person, and as soon as I started talking to her, within 30 seconds, she was feeling not quite so up, not quite so dizzy, not quite so whatever. So it had nothing to do with the price of fish in Vietnam as far as the vaccination. It was just tension from having gotten a vaccination of any kind. No, she just felt a little strange, you know, and she was really worried, and she's gone through this before in previous. She was a drive-through. Yeah, she wasn't, and there was another person in the hall, but after talking to him for a little bit, every time he'd gone in for a medical exam, he'd had the same thing happen.
Okay.
Same feelings. So not that's why I said, there's no anaphylactic response that we've been able to pick out yet.
Okay, yeah, I just needed to clear that
Sure.
up because I didn't catch it.
Of course. Anything else, gentlemen?
I'm ready to move on.
I am too, I was just looking at it, I was gonna ask if there's any other questions. Are you good? We need to move on and accept this, letter to, L. Childs.
Oh, we were finishing up the discussion on the dial, and I was like, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we moved on, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I wasn't sure that's what.
Yeah, go ahead, finish the dialogue.
So, we're getting ready to vote on ratifying this letter to L. We didn't officially apply to the state to move the flu, they moved us and a bunch of other counties on.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was a state action, not us.
That was my understanding, I just wanted to
Yes, sir.
make sure. Thank you.
Okay, so, that sets the stage for the next meeting, and that letter, involved, us accepting that. So now what are we looking for?
Well, we ratified,
That's what we have, maybe we
signing that.
ratify them.
We did that outside of the agreement.
Right.
I would move we ratify signing the letter to Michelle Childs, the county various manager, dated January 29th.
I'll second that, and for discussion point, I'll point out that we did that because of time. And, we weren't gonna have another meeting until now, so that's why it was necessary to ratify this after that. And you didn't have any issues with her doing it, exactly what she asked us to do, and it was written.
She did exactly what we asked her to do, yes,
And
exactly.
clarification, that was to move from orange to yellow.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah. And then the fact that we would. Okay, any other discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Kanda, aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, last shot, anybody? I hate to quit this now, I guess.
Well, I have a question for Mr. Winslow, if I may, but, I think I read in the local papers that 2 businesses had closed because of COVID. My question to you, sir, were those both from Silver Cliff, do you know? And if so, what businesses were they?
Yes. So, we lost the body shop right off the bat. You know, just about COVID,
By chips.
right next door to Chip, well, in the same building as Chip's,
Oh.
Ohio and Maine. So, he couldn't make it. He struggled for the first 2 months when everything was closed down, tried to keep open after that. Chip's is open, closed, and Scorpion is for sale.
Are they closed currently?
They have some, trainers inside the building.
So that would have been, because I've heard this number, 2 businesses have been closed, and I didn't know what they were.
And you were concerned about a couple of restaurants, are you still concerned?
Of course.
That Scorpion, I know it was getting established, this was this hit, were they moving up, or potentially gonna succeed?
I thought they would.
Looks like they were pretty busy.
So, the owner's mom is terminally ill. She left the state to take care of her, and in the meantime, the business is under.
Do you think it's fair to say she's selling the business because of COVID or for a number of reasons?
For a number of reasons.
Just don't want to embellish.
No.
And I don't want to hear embellishment, which I'm sure we all do. Oh, yeah, well, really? So it's nice to get it from the,
2 out of our 4 restaurants are struggling back on I'll tell you that.
yeah.
Until the comfort level, I mean, it's been nice the last couple of weeks she's not the only one here. You know, I mean, we have people down here, well, all over the county in both townships that are having some severe mental issues and hardships.
Yeah, and they're extra cautious.
So they're just plain scared.
That's if they're scared, they don't have to be confined to the house, but they're scared enough that they're not gonna take any chances. And mentally, that really racks you. Really does.
Welcome to the mainstream media.
Yeah.
So that no problem.
I can ask Vernon.
That
I'll
answers your question.
send a text to Vernon.
I mean, we have every reason to do that.
We had Elliot Jackson on the phone. Are you still there, Elliot?
Since we're not gonna meet again until next March meeting, I would move that we have our March BOH meeting in West Cliff.
I think we talk about finding, I know I asked, Tina to look at other places other than here, after the normal meetings, because the Lang Hall's not open.
Right. And the courthouse is not available, they're only available like on Monday and Friday.
So we could, move
So you'd
to a
have to
different-
change the dates.
different, office. Okay.
Yeah, my motion was just to have it in West Cliff. Didn't say
Yeah,
where.
it didn't say where. That's not a bad thought. Kevin, what are your thoughts as opposed to having it down here on the next meeting?
I'm good with it up there.
Okay, let's, plan on a place in West Cliff. We'll determine when and we'll simply, notice that was the agenda.
So is that a motion?
No,
I'll withdraw.
it,
It wasn't,
yeah, it wasn't.
Okay.
it was.
Was it?
Never got handled, I'll withdraw it.
Oh, no, that
The
was,
objective was the same, if we can agree to have it in West Cliff.
yeah, it was just an agreement on mine.
Okay.
You're right. By acclamation, we're gonna do it. I'll second it. All in favor, say aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Tom? Aye. And aye. Community? Aye.
COH meeting since last March.
We did one